Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jesse Flores. I'm a project associate with Valley Vision, and welcome to our latest webinar titled Future of Work, Employer Needs, and Reskilling for a Post-Pandemic Recovery. And today's webinar was brought to you by the City of Sacramento, Valley Vision, and Burning Glass Technologies. A few housekeeping points. Feel free to submit any questions for speakers within the Q&A box, and any technical difficulties or other commentary in the chat box. And also this webinar will be recorded, and the recording will be provided as part of post-meeting materials. And now I'll pass it on to Renee.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Renee John, project leader over 21st Century Workforce Projects at Valley Vision. And I'm pleased to bring this webinar to you today with my co-host, Christina Pallone from the City of Sacramento. And I'll introduce her here in just a minute. We'll go over the agenda next. So what we're going to be doing in this webinar is we'll have an introduction from the City of Sacramento on the CARES funding that help fund the research that's going to be highlighted here, as well as some of the training programs that will be highlighted in the panel discussion. There'll be a time for, after that, there'll be research presented from Joel Simon from Burning Glass Technologies on what employers are looking for in the previous 12 months. He'll go over the methodology of that as well as the results, and there'll be an opportunity for question and answers to Joel after the data is presented. And then we'll have a panel discussion, and we're pleased to be joined by Carmen Marsh, CEO and Managing Partner at Intelligentsia, as well as Alana Jennings, who is the co-founder of Operation Innovate, DBA Code for Hood, and Amy Schultz, Dr. Amy Schultz, Dean of Career Continuing Education at Sierra College, and also the co-author of New World of Work, which is an open source platform for professionalism, soft skills. So at this point, we will go to Christina Pallone from the City of Sacramento and have her tell us a little bit about how these projects were funded.
Great, thank you, Renee, and good morning, everyone. Give me one moment to pull up.
Let me do a better introduction for that. Christina Pallone will tell you a little bit about her. She is a Sacramento native, and she serves as the Workforce Development Manager in the city's Office of Innovation and Economic Development. She leads the portfolio of workforce initiatives and programs, developing a coordinated and aligned workforce development ecosystem in the City of Sacramento, which is no small task in the middle of a pandemic. Her current body of work includes the $10 million that were funded through the CARES Workforce Recovery Program, as well as overseeing the two workforce-centered advisory bodies, the Mayor's Workforce Collective and the city's Investment Committee and Workforce Subcommittee. She has 16 years experience in local government, 10 years with the City of San Francisco, and 6 years with the City of Sacramento. And she's also joined by Abraham Salinas.
Christina, if you're having some issues, I could maybe bring up the PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that. It won't, for some reason, allow me to pull up the screen on my side.
Yeah, no worries. Let me pull that up.
I apologize for that. Thank you for your help. Thank you for everybody's patience. And thank you, Renee, for that introduction. We're very excited about this opportunity, and we've worked very hard for this project to come together. And so it's really nice to see that we're able to share all this information with all of our partners and workforce experts. Let's see.
Yeah. Oh, still no. Okay, yeah, in that case, I will bring it up. All right. Let's see, it's going to appear as a PDF. I'm going to see if I could do full screen. All right.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Jesse. Again, Christina Pallone with the City of Sacramento, Workforce Development Manager, and I am joined by my colleague and teammate, Abraham Salinas, who is also working with me on the Workforce Recovery Program for the City of Sacramento. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give a little bit of context and background about our workforce recovery program. Back in July, the end of July of 2020, our mayor and city council awarded $10 million to our workforce recovery program funded through the CARES recovery relief funding, excuse me. Once we received the approval from council, there were a number of priorities that we wanted the funding to be allocated to. And this is a list of those priorities, particularly making sure that workforce programs were reskilling and upskilling job seekers to become competitive and qualified candidates for our high demand and in-demand jobs in our region, especially given the great need for many of our residents and community members to counter the economic impact of the pandemic. We also understood greatly the need for supportive services, wraparound services, and really wanted to ensure that through this portfolio of work that providers were able to do both training and also the wraparound services and job placement. We also wanted to highlight on this particular slide that there was quite a bit of extensive conversations and input and recommendations from a number of bodies, in particular our workforce working group membership, which is our community advisory body of workforce experts that we at the city rely pretty heavily on to give us insight and direction around the city's workforce investments. Next slide, please. So the city is hosting a site that basically provides a series of COVID relief resources. And in particular for the Workforce Recovery Program, 29 providers were funded through the $10 million, and all of the programs are listed on this particular website. At the very bottom of the page is the website link, and we can definitely share this information post the webinar, but this information, this site gives all the details about how to enroll in the various programs, the focus and target of each of the programs. And again, there were 29 programs that were funded through this $10 million investment by the City of Sacramento. Next slide, please. So this is an update of where we're at to date for the workforce recovery, the city's workforce recovery program. As you'll see here, a number of our workforce providers are also included in today's conversation. Valley Vision, Intelligentsia, and Operation Innovate are all members of our portfolio. Since the extension, the federal extension, 16 of the 29 programs are continuing on with our portfolio. However, we've developed such a tight-knit and strong network with the 29 providers that we've asked all of the providers to continue joining us for the monthly meetings that we have to continue building on the work that we've been doing since the onset of the Workforce Recovery Program. As of February, we have 1,906 Sacramento residents that have received workforce services and resources through this portfolio, which is a really big number for us. The City of Sacramento has never had or implemented a workforce program of this magnitude or effort before. So for this being our initial investment, again, of this size, serving 1,906 Sacramento residents is a really big deal. Our target goal was 1,872 residents, and so we've exceeded that goal, and we'll probably continue to exceed the goal as the portfolio continues on. Also, the providers have placed 376 Sacramento residents through their programs, either in job placement, direct job placement, or internships. This, again, is just a huge accomplishment of the great work by our workforce providers through this portfolio. Their dedication, their commitment, their ability to be flexible in a very short time span has been just absolutely phenomenal. So again, the City of Sacramento is truly grateful for all of the hard work of the workforce providers, all of the stakeholders and partners to make this portfolio so successful. Next slide, please. So this is just a rough timeline of where things are at. As you can see, the workforce recovery providers, they meet on a monthly basis. We do have some upcoming presentations to our mayor and council. Mid-April, there will be a CARES update of a number of CARES funded programs, not just workforce. And then in the June timeframe, we are organizing or coordinating a workforce workshop with mayor and council that will provide more detail around recommendations and next steps around investment. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. So that concludes our presentation. If there are any comments, questions, or feedback, please feel free to contact either myself or Abraham, and here's our information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. It looks like there's a question in the chat. Are the council presentations open to the public?
Yes, they will be, absolutely. And we can get the exact date of that presentation out as soon as it gets scheduled.
Perfect, thank you so much. So at this point, I want to introduce to you Joel Simon from Burning Glass Technologies. When the CARES funding request for proposals was submitted to the public for application, we submitted a proposal in combination with Burning Glass Technologies to be able to provide research and information to inform rapid reskilling programs in the city of Sacramento. So Joel is the Managing Director of Workforce Strategies for Burning Glass Technologies, helping communities, institutions, and workforce development practitioners gather, utilize, and apply data on skills, jobs, industries, and career pathways. He served a variety of public and nonprofit roles supporting community development, educational attainment, and multi-stakeholder partnerships. He currently serves on the board of community development agency Westside Forward, and as secretary of the board of Inner Voice, a homeless services agency. He is a member and past chair of the Higher Education Advisory Council of the International Economic Development Council, and he serves on research advisory councils for the Hiring Opportunity Coalition and the Graduate Network. He's also served as faculty for the Institute of Sustainable Communities, the Institute for Higher Education Policy, and the International Economic Development Council, and the Accreditation Council of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, if I said that correctly. Joel earned a Bachelor of Science from Northwestern University and a Master of Arts from the University of Chicago, and he lives in Chicago's West Lakeview neighborhood. I will hand it to you, Joel. Joel, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Rookie Zoom mistake, although I don't think any of us are Zoom rookies anymore. Thank you. Thanks for your patience. And thank you for that great introduction, Renee. And thanks, Christina and Abraham and the City of Sacramento for making all of this work possible. As Renee mentioned, I am not a Sacramentonian or Californian even. I live in Chicago, and one of the great disappointments of the COVID era is not getting to visit great places that we do these projects for. So I look forward to visiting Sacramento soon when we're able to, but I have really enjoyed getting to know at least something about the city and about the region through study of what's going on in the job market. And of course, it's a dynamic time in the labor market all over the country and indeed all over the world. And Sacramento and its surrounding areas is no exception to that. And so Burning Glass Technologies is a labor market software and analytics firm, and we do our best to understand what's going on in the labor market through a big data approach. And we derive most of the data that I'm going to share with you today from job postings. So we go out to the internet every day and we visit tens of thousands of job posting websites, and we pull those job postings down and we're able to read them. And so we understand the volume of postings by industry, by occupation. And then we also read what's inside of those job postings so we understand what's happening in the skills environment. We scoop up these data from all over the world. And so we're able to understand really at a really DNA level what is a nurse and what are the skills and credentials required, what is a truck driver and what are the skills and credentials required, et cetera. And then as we sort of track the posting volume in particular areas, and in this case, Sacramento, we're able to put all of those data together to try and understand what's exactly happening in the market. And right now, it's tempting to try and watch these indicators day by day, because things do indeed change day by day. And I'll show you a couple of graphs that show some of the volatility over the last year in just a moment. But we're also not looking to solve the problem just for today, but also for the long term. And that concept plays out, I think, especially importantly when we talk about phenomena such as automation. And so that is the act of a robot or a computer doing the tasks that heretofore a human has done and may indeed still be doing. And automation and job loss and job change associated with automation didn't just come about. It's been going on really since the beginning of industrial economies in some way, shape, or form. But of course, it's picked up as digitization and automation has accelerated in recent years. And one of the things that we learned, we've learned multiple times, but especially so in the 2008 recession, and that we're learning again right now, is that recessions can indeed accelerate the impacts of automation. And so when a company or a group of companies or an industry has to lay off or furlough or let go employees because of what's going on in the economy, when things pick up again, they don't necessarily just hire those exact same people back. And they don't necessarily just hire people back into those same roles, but rather they think about how can we take this moment of change to do things differently and to do things more efficiently. And that's often a time when companies will invest in automation. What's special about now is that this effect happens amidst a health crisis where human beings need to be 6 feet apart from one another and have necessarily correct and reasonable concerns about being in the same closed space with one another. So all the more reason for an employer to keep their people, their customers, and their employees safe by further investing in automation. And so that's one of the main features that we started to look at when we were trying to understand what's happening in the Sacramento economy right now. And so we're thinking about what are the occupations that are especially vulnerable to automation. And so all of the occupations in our taxonomy that we look at, we give an automation score to. It's a rank between 0 and 1 that basically says what proportion of the tasks associated with this job could conceivably be done by a robot or by a computer. And what you're seeing on the screen right now are 4 different categories within which there are 2 to 5 specific occupations wherein automation risk is especially acute. Automation insulated roles tend to be those that necessarily require human skills. So often a lot of healthcare providers or teachers or social workers that have that you wouldn't necessarily want to have a Roomba, giving you psychotherapy. But these occupations that you're seeing listed here in those 4 categories are those which are especially susceptible to automation, because some or a great deal of the work that they do can indeed be done by a robot. Now, just because they can be done in an automated fashion doesn't mean they necessarily will be. But again, because of the accelerated automation that goes along with recessions, we're especially concerned about that. And so when we take all of those occupations, we did indeed gather up all the job postings and all of the, those roles that are being filled right now in the Sacramento region. And it's no small number. It's just shy of 200,000 folks who, even before COVID, were facing some risk of automation. And I think it's fair to say that that level of risk has only increased since the COVID health crisis and economic recessions have happened. And so as we look at what's happening over time with those occupations, the next slide shows you roughly a year's worth of job postings activity. And each of these colored lines does indeed indicate job posting activity for those 4 different categories. These data are drawn from the 6-county metro area. We do have county by county data, so we can just look at what's happening, in any one or any combination of those 6 counties. I like to look at a metro area because people and jobs and businesses don't necessarily live by those municipal or county lines that live on the map. You can live in one county and work in another, and of course that happens quite frequently. If we could go back to the other slide, I just want to comment on that, just on the previous slide. So what you see here are sort of different, levels, of volume here, right? So that red line is the office and administrative support occupations. So that's sort of the highest, highest volume, and the production and maintenance occupations at the lowest, out of these 4. And not surprisingly, when you've got more people in those roles, there are more opportunities for these jagged lines for those individuals to cause different kinds of swings in the data, where the production and maintenance you see is somewhat more stable over time. The office and administrative support are much more volatile. And if you could take a peek at that, you see right roughly in the middle of the chart in March of 2020, that's just the when the pandemic was sort of officially declared, and then you see those downsloping lines immediately after that and bouncing around, and fortunately a little bit of an uptick over the last couple of months. Next slide, please. And so what we also want to recognize here is that occupations can spread out across multiple industries, right? So a food service employee certainly works at a restaurant, but they also work at hospitals and at educational institutions and places all across the economy. And so similarly, all of these other roles that we were tracking on, on the other page find themselves into different kinds of industry sectors. And very often those industry sectors' behavior at the local or regional level end up being among the most important influencers of how those occupations are doing. So again, this is going back to fall of 2019, and we look at these lines and we see the percentage change in job postings. Interestingly, that sort of sharp upswing, in the transportation line, I bet you all had something to do with that by ordering Amazon or Grubhub or any of those sort of delivery services. So we see, recessions are not always impacting different industries in the exact same way or in the exact same direction. Similarly, you see, pretty wide swings in the retail trade and so forth, and relative stability in the finance and insurance sector. Again, this is as it relates to the Sacramento region, and different regions would show somewhat different sort of swings here. Next slide, please. So when we start to think about who is affected, so we thought about industries and we thought about occupations, it's fair to say that the people or the subpopulations don't experience all of these things in exactly the same way, quite the contrary. And so what we've done here is we have rolled up all of those occupations that we recognized as high risk occupations, and we tried to figure out, okay, who is concentrated demographically, in those groups. So overall, across those 4 categories and dozen or more occupations, we see 60% of those facing greater risk are females, And we also see, across different racial groups, minorities, people of color, and underrepresented populations tend to experience more acute and higher levels of automation risk. That is in part a function of what I'll call occupational segregation, right? So where some certain demographics are clustered up in certain areas. So if you take, healthcare, for example, there's more females, in healthcare, and in a lot of the roles, that they are in. We saw with doctors and dentist office closures and professional office closures, even though we were in a bit of a health crisis, there was a downturn in employment in healthcare writ large, associated with some of those sort of discretionary areas. And the people that in those roles, more frequently are women and minorities, and it's not shown on this chart, but younger people as well. Within each of those different occupational risk groupings, you're going to see wide swings here. So for example, in food service, which was one of the categories, that is overwhelmingly female. In manufacturing, it ends up being overwhelmingly male. And so it really goes to looking at those industries and where folks are, and looking at the occupations within industries and where those folks are. And I should note that all of this research at that more granular level will be made available to the broader community, and so those more particular analyses will be available to you later on. Next slide, please. Okay, and so now we're looking at other sort of features. So I mentioned the age feature, right? So you see that 16 to 24-year-old group makes up a full quarter of the folks in those high-risk occupations, and only 11% of those folks in the very low-risk occupations. So we see risk is not sort of distributed, evenly. And we also see that folks with a bachelor's degree, the larger share of those folks are in lower risk occupations, whereas the converse is true as you go down the educational attainment ladder. And so again, as we think about who is bearing the brunt of these changes, we see younger people, minorities, and people with lower education levels. These were not the people who were doing the best even before the recession. And so as we understand the impacts of what's going on here, thinking about policy and practice and job training and CARES Act investments that's targeted to the folks who are indeed taking all of these changes on the chin is an important thing to think about. So the question becomes, what do we do, right? So we know that there's inequities. That was true before. Now we know it's exacerbated now, and we know that it's playing out in these industry and occupational ways. And so one of the ways that Burning Glass likes to use our data is to try and figure out where somebody can go, right? And so none of us are fixed, no matter what job we have. That doesn't mean the job will always be ours, and that doesn't mean we will always have that particular job, but we are human beings who can learn and grow and advance. And we are economies, and we live in economies that have lots of opportunities. And so the question is, how do you get from here to there? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So I'm going to the next slide, please. All right, so we're thinking about career pathways and how do we chart that course from here to there. So what we're going to do now is take a look at those high-risk occupations and think about how those skills can apply in other occupations where folks can get out of that risk profile. And so we'll take a look at the first map, right? So now we're looking at the food prep and serving related occupations. So it's food prep and serving workers, cooks, and waiters and waitresses are the high risk occupations within that sector. I had mentioned that our risk automation, or our automation risk score, goes from 0 to 1. Right, and so we see these roles have a 0.92 to a 0.96 risk factor here, right? So that's pretty high. That's pretty close to that number 1. So this is a very high risk occupation. Right now, we've counted about 52,000 workers in the Sacramento region that are in one or more of those 3 occupations that are experiencing those high levels of risk. be that as it may. So we were talking about food prep and serving occupations, high risk, a substantial number of people in the region doing those jobs right now, but maybe not being able to do them too far into the future. And even as they are, they're not making a ton of money, $26,000 a year. So what we did is take a look at the skills associated with that cluster of occupations and try to find, going to pop back, there we go, occupations with substantially lower risk scores, substantially higher high skills adjacencies, and better better wages, right? And so that's what that little sort of bullseye looks at, right? The closer the dot into that food prep and serving occupations is the higher level of skills adjacency, or the most number of similar skills. And then we can take a look there and say that, hey, I'm a food prep and serving related occupation. I can move from being a restaurant cook to a chef or a head cook. And you can see I'm going to pick up an $8,000 raise. My automation risk is going to drop from roughly 90% down to 10%. There's certainly not enough openings there, only 379 to account for 52,000 workers, but it's a start. So we do have skills adjacency, skills overlap, but we also recognize that those head cooks have in the skills list that show up in those job postings, budgeting, cost control, staff management, and planning. So those are some skills that cook or waiter or food prep worker is going to need to pick up in order to be able to get out of that risk profile into that higher salary category. And so similarly, we're looking at food service managers, stock clerks and order fillers, and concierges, all of which have favorable wages, lower risk profiles, and not insignificant numbers of openings available to them. And you can see all of those skills gaps that the education and training and workforce development community can step in and say, hey, we can take somebody who's got some relevant experience, we can layer on some additional skills and get them into a better situation. So these were just the top 4 from a skills adjacency standpoint that we found. Of course, like I said, it's not going to hit that 52,000 number, but frankly, we don't need to. We don't need to because not all of those 52,000 workers are going to be out of luck. And also because, especially in this sector, a great deal of the folks who start in food prep and serving related occupations, among such people, don't end up staying in that sector, but go on to other roles in other industries. So that's the food prep and serving related occupations. So if we go on to the next one, now we're going to take a look at the production and maintenance occupation category. And so that includes construction laborers, landscaping and grounds workers, and things like that. So a smaller base here, so about 16,500 workers, pretty much the same, slightly lower automation risk compared to our waiters, cooks, and so forth. And so we start to see, again, with the skills adjacency analysis, that maintenance and repair worker is the next level up from the production construction laborer. And we see, again, about a $4,000 or $5,000 raise, a substantial but not a dramatic drop in automation risk, but a large number of job postings there. And then you can see sort of the skills to acquire there. So like everything in life, it's all a trade-off, right? Are you looking for that big payoff, right? And so the biggest payoff here is to move into a construction and building inspector role. Theoretically, at least, nearly a doubling of your salary, or more than a doubling, right? Going from 38,500 median salary up until $81,000. That's a pretty big jump, but you can see you didn't get too far out of that risk profile. You're still at a 0.63 risk profile and a relatively small number of openings, just 273 openings when we ran this data back late last year. And so all of the sort of decisions around what path you want to follow and what skills you want to pick up and what role you want to get into next, understanding all of those dimensions, I think, are important for players in the workforce development ecosystem, the agencies, the one-stop centers, and American Job Centers, and so forth, who can work with their clients and to be able to say, hey, you know, this path leads you to good money, but still substantial risk. This is not necessarily a terrific raise, but there's a lot of jobs, and trying to balance out and weigh out, you know, all of those factors. I think I saw a question in the chat that asked if this one happened to include custodians. Actually, custodians have a lower risk profile than the construction laborers and landscaping and groundskeeping workers. So this analysis actually doesn't include that particular occupation, but you could imagine the methodology by which you could also do that comparison as it relates to a custodian or any other occupation that we're thinking of. Incidentally, the way we did this was, you know, we looked at those highest risk occupations within the Sacramento region. Had to be a minimum number of jobs for us to say, hey, it's worth sort of digging into, and then we clustered them up into these categories, this one being the production and maintenance occupational category. All right, so if we go on to the next one, we've got a couple more to look at. Now we're looking at sales and related occupations. Now, interestingly enough, sales is one of those occupations where there's a wide range of experiences here. So you can think of your sort of basic telemarketer who's reading off of a script and dialing for dollars, all the way up to somebody who's doing high-tech sales that requires deep knowledge and skills, and maybe even an advanced degree to understand the technologies that they're selling and to relate to the people to whom they're selling. So what we're seeing here is a really, really wide range of experiences here. But again, you know, we're looking at a pretty high automation risk, and because the largest number of people skew towards that lower skill and lower wage end, so that would include telemarketers, that would include folks working at a big box retail store or somebody like that, right? So we see cashiers, retail salespersons, and insurance sales agents being the highest risk versions of the sales and related occupational categories. So again, a non-negligible number of workers, 55,000 of those workers who are facing pretty high levels of automation risk. And if you've ever been through a grocery store checkout line and scanned and bagged your own groceries, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so you can see here, similarly to the other slides, stock clerks and auto order fillers, sales reps in wholesale and manufacturing, technical and scientific products, personal financial advisors, and sales managers. Those are the ones that floated to the top as the highest number of overlapping skills. We see with the stock clerks and order fillers, that's actually a step down in terms of average wages. Now, that doesn't mean every cashier has to take a pay cut if they're going to fill any one of the stock clerks and order filler jobs. There are, this is the median, right? So there's going to be you know, wages above and below sort of that median. So it's certainly, you know, reasonable to think that you could get a raise, but on average, that's not where the center of gravity is on those occupations. Outside of recession times, we would probably boot that one out, but recognizing right now that there's a lot of folks for whom a 5% pay cut is not ideal, but you know, better than being without. So we include that. But again, I think
Joel,
yeah.
I want to apologize for the interruption. I know we had an interruption in our technology as well, but just to let you know, we have about 5 more minutes for the research part of it.
Got it. All right, we're going to go real quick through the rest of it, and I'll just share a couple of examples. So we're going to click forward a couple of slides, if we could, one more. And one more. Okay. And so now we're thinking about skills, right? So we picked out some of those overlapping skills that are important to facilitate those transitions. But now we're also going to look at sort of the broad-based skills, right? So again, we looked at all of the occupations and job postings in the Sacramento region and said, okay, what are the skills that seem to be important all across the board? So if we go to the next slide, we're going to look at a couple of those digital skills. So keep going, please. All right, and so we see the most in-demand digital skills are the ones listed here. Now, I'll sort of caution you to note that by definition, right, these are the ones that are showing up in the most occupations. So niche skills are not going to fall in here. If there's just a skill that's just related to the finance industry, it's not going to show up here because there's so many other jobs. These are the ones that sort of cut across. And if we click over to the next slide, we're also interested in the fastest growing skills. And you'll see the percentages here are the rate of growth over the last 4 or 5 years, right? And so you can see Git is a skill. It doesn't register as a top skill across the economy, but it's being listed in job postings at 128.5% growth rate. That's pretty staggering. We see a few in here that have modest sort of declines, but still substantial. So it's important as we think about skating to where the puck is going to be, as we think about the people that you are serving and how they can prepare for jobs of tomorrow, looking at these high growth skills end up being very important. All right, next, please. And then cybersecurity, I know is an area of special interest that some of the other panelists, have an interest in. So this was not from this current project, but from some other work we've done. And I would encourage you to visit www.cyberseek.org. Just sort of wanted to call out just in this specific niche area, there's a good handful of job titles. Sacramento has a higher concentration of cyber roles than the national average, 70% higher, as a matter of fact. And we see a real need, in this space. And then on the right side, you see the certifications that are listed there. So I know that that's an area of special interest sort of for this group. So wanted to pull that out and invite you to take a look at that website for additional detail, and you'll see national numbers and Sacramento numbers in that. And so with that, I just want to say I'll make myself available to anybody who wants to discuss any of these findings further. I look forward to when you get to see the full report, and appreciate all the work that you do, and hopefully some of this data can be helpful in your role in positioning Sacramento residents to meet the needs of the new economy and recover quickly from COVID. And so with that, Christina, Renee, Jesse, thanks so much. Happy to hand the baton off to the next panelist.
Thank you. Joel, there's a question about what SQL and GIT are, or Git.
Yeah, so Git is a project management, IT project management application. So it's so often used in manufacturing and media, and so some pretty advanced technical skills to be used there. And SQL is a database application.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks so much. And now I want to introduce our panel. I think Joel is going to hang around, so if we have additional questions after the panel discussion, we can also move those forward. You're getting a few thank yous. I want to introduce to you who's going to be participating in our panel. We have Carmen Marsh, who's the CEO and managing partner of Intelligencia Incorporated. She leads a team that consults with mid-sized businesses and cyber risk management, doing audit and compliance, including change management for large technical implementations. She started Intelligencia after 20 years working with companies who needed people who understood technology, including Sony Incorporated and Stanford Ranch International. She has also turned her energy toward creating opportunities for a new generation of digital warriors. She founded the 100 Women in 100 Days Cybersecurity Career Accelerator program to develop security experts for companies like Intel, IBM, Centene, and others. Her program provides women with free education and accreditation needed to obtain top industry certifications that prepare them for a job in cybersecurity. She is also the founder of Cybersecurity Women of the Year Awards, Ally of the Year Awards, Sacramento Valley Cyber Salons, and additional others. Carmen graduated from the University of Gothenburg in Sweden. We also have Alana Jennings, who is a social entrepreneur, advocate for youth employment, and an edu-technology professional with over 28 years of experience. As a co-founder of Operation Innovate, doing business as Code for Hood and the Go-To Network, she focuses on building STEM-based career pathway opportunities, workforce development recovery programs, strategy, and innovation. In addition to those projects, she works as a workforce development consultant, corporate and nonprofit organizations to create workforce learning and development solutions as a senior instructional designer, curriculum developer, and IT project manager, among others. She serves as co-chair and member of the City of Sacramento Inclusive Economic and Community Development Investment Committees. And we also have Dr. Amy Schultz, who is the Dean of Career and Continuing Dean of Career, Continuing and Technical Education at Sierra College. She's also the co-creator of New World of Work 21st Century Skills, which is an open source platform for professionalism soft skills. Amy Schultz oversees workforce development and 12 instructional programs, including business megatronics, building industries and public safety, with a focus on aligning programming to meet the region's workforce needs. Amy holds a PhD in organizational systems from Saybrook University and MBA from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, and a BA in economics from UC Davis. So this is our illustrious panel. And I'm going to be sharing questions with Christina Polone from the city of Sacramento. So I will have Christina ask the first question.
Great, thank you, Renee. And sorry, give me 1 second. To all three of the panelists, number one, please provide information about your organization, training, and programs offered.
So if we can start with you, Carmen.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. Thank you for a really nice introduction, Renee. And Christina, thank you for asking a question. I don't think I can probably skip the introduction piece because you've done such a good job. But I will talk a little bit about the 100 Women, 100 Days Cybersecurity Career Accelerator, because that is really what we have used as a model for our SAC Cares Career Accelerator. And really, when we initially created this program, we knew that there was a lack of talent in cybersecurity. Specifically, we had a lack of women. There was less than 20% of those jobs were occupied by women. So we had to do something. And that is really how this whole idea was born. We were super excited and lucky to get a big supporter in Craig Newmark, the founder of Craigslist. He invested in our program and we launched our first one in 2019. Fast forward, last year, again, I was really excited because we were able to take the same curriculum and provide that to the residents of Sacramento. So we partnered with, I think we're called Collective 6 as part of Greater Sacramento Urban League and City of Sacramento to run this program. And we offered this program to 45 students last year. And I'm happy to say that at this point, we have all of them participating in internship. So they're building their portfolio, they continue learning. Cybersecurity and many jobs is super demanding. So because of our program, not only takes in consideration the certification that hiring managers are looking for, but we also need a lot of work or hands-on workshops, because that's really where they're going to gain experience. You perhaps may have a degree in computer science and master's in cybersecurity, but if you don't have any experience, it's going to be very hard for you to get a job, even entry-level job in cybersecurity. So we really look at it holistically. Look at everything that hiring managers are looking for. What are some of those top certifications they're asking for? What are some of the hands-on skills that they're going to be looking for in entry-level jobs? We have incorporated soft skill trainings, which is a great thing to see that that's communication and soft skills are really appreciated by everyone across all industries, and that's the study also shows that. So a lot of great things is part of our program, including again the internship and then matching up our students with employers. We have a lot of partners in the area, local employers that are eager to talk with our students and have been engaged with our students since the Career Expo we had in December, early December. So yeah, I'm pleased that has been so well received.
Thank you so much. And Alana, can you tell us about your programs, your organization and training programs? You're on mute, Alana.
I know, now I know. Hi everyone. So yeah, Cobrahood has always originally focused on working with youth. Prior to COVID, we did a lot more of the tinkering and playing with STEM opportunities through our hackathons. that were either a weekend long or pop-up hackathons at different school districts, but we've since moved into more STEM career pathways and workforce development. One of the programs that we launched with the city of Sacramento during COVID was the 8-week boot camp in graphic design. In prior events that we've held, we've worked in cybersecurity, coding and software development, game development, and again, like I said, visual arts and graphic design. Currently, we're moving towards doing a lot more of the workforce development STEM career pathways. We are hopefully we'll be fully online. We're doing things online now, but fully online. We're operating an online workforce accelerator program that will work with youth and young adults, and I don't want to call them children, but youth and young adults ages 16 to 24. So our goal is to not only introduce them to a STEM career pathway at an earlier age, but to give opportunities for internships, externships, and also certify them with entry-level certs, things such as A+ cert. There's another one I can't think of right now, but just really working with them on that entry level. It doesn't mean they have to not go to college. It just gives them an opportunity to tinker and kind of get into the field and see if they like it. There are so many career pathways in STEM that we don't want to, oh, someone's sending me a message, okay. There's so many career pathways in STEM. We don't want to discourage, we want to encourage them to look at them early and not jump into something right away, right after college, right after high school. Sometimes they're going to software development like, oh my God, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to do something else. So this gives them a chance to play with different opportunities and then decide maybe, you know, say year 4 in their field, I really want to be a software developer, or I really want to become, you know, a cybersecurity specialist, whatever that might be. And then they can look into the 4-year degrees and have a lot more, a better focus on where they'd like to go. So that's our focus, is to help kind of guide them in the right direction at an earlier age versus waiting for them to kind of, you know, get into a college program and realize this is not what I want to do and I'm already 2 years in. So yeah. So those are some of the programs that we're working with right now with Code for Hood. And I did see the chat, and definitely if you could leave your email, we can definitely connect after this call.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And we'll ask the same question to Amy. And I do want to highlight, we will be sending out the full presentation of Joel's because I know that got truncated a little bit short. So there's some additional information in there that Carmen also alluded to about the top skills employers are looking for. And top of the list on that was communication at almost 30%. So in addition to needing digital skills, there's also a large call out to professionalisms or soft skills, whatever, however you refer to them. So Amy, if you could answer the question about how your organization and training and programs offered, and I know you both work for Sierra College and also do the New World of Work. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, my primary role is with Sierra College. I'm the Dean for Career Continuing and Technical Education, which includes the Division of Business and Technology, and also contract education and community education and workforce development. So we are really focused on career technical education in our division, and Sierra College also does, we do a lot of work in transfer for associate's degrees and transfer as well. But today we're talking really about workforce and opportunities for upskilling and reskilling and retraining post-pandemic. So some ways that we were impacted at Sierra College is one, just how we delivered education. So we did a quick switch to online and remote for most of our classes. We were able to bring back our essential workforce labs back to campus. So things like our public safety, EMTs, nursing, welding. You can't weld online, unfortunately. So we are doing those on ground for the labs, and they're in a hybrid model. The lectures are online. And as far as our strategy for how to respond to the pandemic and the immediate need in workforce is we really took a two-pronged approach. So, and a lot of this was really directed from the Chancellor's office, where they freed up the funding to be able to be more flexible and adaptable in this situation. So we're focusing on short-term training programs to get people straight into workforce. So we have a construction skills boot camp. Also, we're partnering with the North State Building Industry Association on that. It's a non-credit, meaning tuition-free
boot camp. It's 6 weeks long, and then students or completers will be placed straight into jobs if they're interested. And then we're going to expand that with some work that we're doing with Golden Sierra and SETA through the SB1 highway construction funding to do MC3 pre-apprenticeship training. So similar model will be done over a short period of time to go straight into workforce. We also, in our advanced manufacturing and welding, we're changing some of our classes to be shorter term and partnering with industry to let students go straight into workforce, but then continue on it with their education with us with night classes and evening classes. So that's a shorter approach. And then, you know, for students that are able to invest a longer period of time, there are many opportunities for still middle skills jobs. They're high demand and high wage. So my co-presenters, Alana and Carmen, presented the great work they're doing in cybersecurity and computer science and STEM. And we are, you know, also have programs in that. So we are investing in our cybersecurity program, and our mechatronics, which is industrial automation and robotics. So we're really encouraging, this is an opportunity if people are able to invest a little more time into their education. And we're really talking, you know, 2 years or less. There are many jobs out there that are unfilled and are high paying and can really contribute to our workforce.
Thank you. And I'm going to drop a resource in the chat here. This is a website, New World of Work, that has open source platform for professional skill building, both for college and high school age. So that is a resource for yourself and your students, for the educators that are on the call. And then Amy kind of already answered this about pivots related to COVID. I would like to ask that same question to Carmen and Alana. Carmen, how did you pivot your training and offerings based on COVID?
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and I think I missed that part of the answer. Yeah, so the big thing for us is, of course, the hands-on type of workshops. So a lot of people like to, or they learn better in a live environment, you know, in a group with an instructor. So we had to really, we had to pivot, and we had to bring all of our content online. So we start live streaming our classes, which made it a little challenging, because if you think about it, just for the Security Plus certification, that would be, you know, sometimes 4 to even 8 hours, of course, breaks in between, but that's a lot of streaming for students a day. A lot of screen, time, too much screen time actually, but then also it's not, the interaction is somewhat there, but it's I think has been reduced a little bit because of that. Online is not exactly the same. I mean, everybody did the best they could, but really I think that was the most challenging part, is to go from in class live instruction to, or in-person instruction, to online. But I think we've made it through for sure.
Thank you, Carmen. How about you, Alana? How did you have to pivot your programs?
Yeah, definitely. Same as Carmen, just we had to move everything online, of course, and, you know, give them subscriptions for Zoom and different channels. So what we did was we did a blended approach. I myself am an instructional designer by trade. So I design online training programs, you know, all over the place. So we put together some online courses that folks could access as a self-paced modules. We also had 2 days a week live discussions on our classes. So we had an actual live instructor. Folks had to share their screen and put on their video so we can see them, that they were alive and well. And then we also opened up different channels like Slack channels, Discord, things like that, and had open discussion. So we moved everything online, but we tried to keep at least 50% of that blended approach into actual having a live instructor, because a lot of folks are going to miss that hands-on instruction with in-person classes. And I apologize for the background. So yes, definitely was a challenge, but we were really, really successful, I think, because of the age group that we're working with. As a side note, we're also doing a project right now with some elementary school students, and it's a lot different than working with the older kids. So definitely see the difference in, you know, how online instruction can actually be successful. I feel like it's definitely not with our younger generation, but these older kids or older teens and older youth definitely can handle that that switch. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for that great description. We have another question for you.
For me?
Yeah, for all of you, Christine.
Oh, okay. So for little, okay.
Okay, and we'll actually start with Dr. Schulz. Given the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on women and minority populations, how do your offerings address this?
Yeah, that is a great question, Christina. And I think the inequities were just striking as the pandemic unfolded, and we saw how women and students of color were really impacted. So as far as our offerings, we did do the pivot to more shorter term training, but really it was working with and continuing to work with our college foundation, and we just have an amazing student support services team that we did everything from issue laptops out to students to be able to continue on with their classes, to we have every Wednesday we have a drive-through food bank that students can come through and pick up food. We've done housing assistance. So there's been a lot of services that Sierra College has been able to provide through student services and our foundation to really address those immediate needs. As we're going through, as we continue on and we're really looking towards the future and how to plan, how to do planning around our programming, it's becoming more and more apparent how those wraparound services and support services really need to be intentional with the design of the program. It shouldn't be like, okay, the students come and now we need this. Like, we need to know from the beginning what they need. So we are really working on strategic partnerships with community partners that can help provide that support. The other piece of the pie in our case is outreach. So these are audiences and populations that could really benefit from our programs, but we're not sure if we're reaching them, if they even know that this is available. You can come and do a 6-week boot camp and go straight into work. And so we are partnering with community partners who can help convey that message in different languages to different audiences in different ways that we haven't done before. But we really are, and we have been doing this before, but the pandemic really just put it, in our face. Like, we need to design with equity in mind from the very beginning. And so that is our strategy moving forward.
That's great. Thank you. Carmen, can you give us your insight in, given the disproportionate impact of the pandemic on women and minority populations, how has your offerings addressed this?
Yes, and Amy really called it out right. It's important to know what are the needs of the students and who you're serving. And I think Greater Sacramento Urban League did a really good job because they already thought ahead that perhaps some of the students will need a computer assistance, some may need assistance with Wi-Fi, a lot of different things. But that is one thing that from our perspective too, because we had to move from being in class set up with all the already set up computers in our training room to go online, that some people may not have all the technology, and some of our AI-based type of real life scenarios type of projects really require the good bandwidth and a good computer with the latest operating system and that kind of stuff. So we worked through that. But I think this was sort of an eye-opening for us to say, next time we do a program like this, we really need to do a prep time, making sure that our students will have that access, that we can provide everything possible, because some of them actually lost maybe a day or two, because of that. We didn't know as we were enrolling them what their situation was. And of course, the time frame for the program was a fast track as well, right? So we're trying to do a lot of it. So thinking forward, I think a lot of prep time will have to happen, keeping that in mind. So how do we enroll students, making sure that they set up for success so they can participate in their classes from day to day. They have everything they need, you know, the right resources. But also we noticed that being everything remote, we had to engage with them a lot more. So I would be checking in every day with them. So how was your class? Or if they missed an hour, you know, in the morning, or if they didn't show up for something, I would always follow up and say, hey, you know, what, you know, is there a problem? How can I help? I want to make sure that you're good. And so what I'm saying is, I think there is a lot of time that also has not been accounted for, because as we switch from doing it in class, because a lot of those things would be worked out, you know, going to the digital, we did not know that we needed so much extra involvement and, you know, engagement with our students. So all of those lessons learned moving forward, we will count that for that. In as well as at the end of our program, a lot more, I think, engagement with the local employers early on, even though I felt that we did start that engagement in, because we had a career fair, we had a lot of employers, for, you know, local employers that came with the job openings and start talking to our students. It seems like maybe we can even start earlier. It's almost like it could be, you know, maybe not day one, but early on in the program, we start engaging with employers. And so they get to know our students. And by the time they graduate, they're there, they have relationships are built, and they're ready to go. So those are kind of our experiences. And moving forward, we're going to take all of that in account.
Great, thank you, Carmen. And Alana?
Sorry about the mute button. I guess I want to reiterate for us, our focus is 16 and up. I'm going to say 16 to 24 is our primary focus. So not only is it just on women and minority populations, but you know, it's both female and the male population that we reach out to. For us, for the specific program we did back in October to December, we did a really big push and kind of emphasize in our marketing. You know, we strongly want to encourage, you know, young people, both men and women and minorities, to apply for a program. Ironically, we had nothing but women of color in our program and one male who was about 21. So we had it was a really nice pool of young people that were in this class, and they were all affected by it in a different way. So maybe it was that they were recently laid off, or maybe they had a second job within their family that was, you know, affected by COVID. So the different challenges that they face, this is an opportunity for them to really get a skill that they could actually use. We also made sure that they had laptops if they didn't have access to laptops. So we did loan our laptops for a lot of folks. We weren't able to ensure Wi-Fi was great because we didn't have the resources to do so, but luckily they all had what they needed to be able to access the online training. Like I say, I kind of go back to our whole mission is to get them engaged early. So we're working with like schools like American Legion High School right now, and a couple other high schools where we want to get those young people engaged in those different career paths, such as cybersecurity, digital skills, and things like that. So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we do have a couple of questions from the audience. So we have a statement from Mark Epstein that statistics from the census indicate the greatest drop in labor participation is among 20-something males. And we did see that in the demographic research that Joel brought forward and the disparate impact to young people, which we also experienced during the Great Recession. So how do serving young people, particularly males, I suppose, but also all young people fit into the equity strategies that you're employing? Maybe we'll start with you, Alana.
I mean, that's our primary target. That's our target range. So I think for us, it's a no-brainer. That's what we're looking for, and that's who we want. And we've always been, like, as a cohort, always worked in that age group. We started a little bit later at 12, of course, but like I said, now that as I have, and this is just a personal statement, 19 nieces and nephews of my own. I'm going to say 12 of those are between the ages of 17 and 27. And so I see their, just being on I see their challenges in the workforce right now, all of them. They're always looking for, you know, just that guidance, that helping hand. You know, next thing they're taking one class over here and they change their mind over here. So it's a really a critical age where we gotta get them early, and kind of, you know, get them together and talk to them. There's so many opportunities. I think a lot of our youth who are from, you know, a diverse population just don't believe in themselves enough. So there's also that self-esteem element that we have to work on, and some of the social skills, because when you start talking cybersecurity or coding or software development, everyone immediately thinks, oh, I got to be smart, or I got to know math, or I have to know all this science. And really, there's so many different career paths that they can take that eliminate all that other stuff, you know? And so we got to really get them educated and aware of what's out there, because it doesn't always mean you have to be this super uber smart person to have a very successful career in tech and or, you know, cybersecurity, things like that. So I think it's really just, for us, it's a no-brainer. That's our target market. That's where we're always headed. That's what we're reaching out to first and foremost, are those who are within that age group.
Thank you.
I'm going on about this, but
yes, your passion is fantastic.
I'm passionate about it. So exactly.
How about you, Carmen, on the young adults, you know, on the spectrum of who you're serving?
I think it's perfect for that age. Absolutely. The younger they are, more excited we get, because it is a long way to become an expert in cybersecurity, but there's so many different categories. I think there's 45 different job categories in cybersecurity only. And as I did mention before, our Accelerator actually has two different paths. One is to upskill them very technically. And then one is more on admin side, admin path, which really takes in consideration project management, cybersecurity, sales, marketing, you know, those kind of jobs, because those jobs are available. But if they are more, you know, interested in that type of work, there's an opportunity for them to go there. But the biggest thing is we don't have a requirements for entry. They don't have to have a college degree. So if they are just graduate from high school, or if they started working in their 20s, late teens, they're looking for something it's really rewarding, that pays well, but also it's in an industry that has a zero unemployment, which cybersecurity is at the moment. You know, we really need anybody that we could get. That we can get. So I think it's a perfect way for them to upskill, get trained, because, you know, we like I said, we focus on what hiring managers are looking for, so they get those skills, they get that experience, and yeah, I'm glad we can offer something like that. So this is a good type of a program for teens and young people in 20s.
Thank you. Thanks. Amy, anything that you want to add about how the programs that you represent are fitting in for young people, and particularly 20-something males, and the disparate impact on young people?
Yeah, I think the community college system, that is really our, you know, historical audience. So that's our traditional learners, you could say. So that is really a lot of our students. We do, as part of our guided pathways efforts, we really do take a focus, like once our students come to us, what are the supports that they need to stay? So there's taking a look at student success and completion rates, and making sure we have the support in place. We have student support specialists that are available if students have questions, or there's other issues going on that might prevent them from completing or finishing a semester. And so then we try to intervene. So once we have them, we want to keep them, and we want them to finish and go out and accomplish their goals, whether that's transferring or going out into the workforce.
Thank you. And this next question I'll just address to whoever wants to answer it on the panel. And this is from Wes Oberlin. What opportunities are available for high school students to work in the cybersecurity IT field as an entry-level employee? Are there opportunities for high school students to do that?
I can answer that. Yes, there definitely are. And typically, from our experience and students that come through or graduate from our program, they get into either the SOC analyst type of jobs, which are really are sort of the entry level, or help desk or IT. And then that's sort of a pathway into a more specific cyber jobs. But definitely, if you get through our program, you are set up to apply for one of those jobs, whether it's a SOC analyst or help desk, IT specialist in general. So yeah.
Thank you. Anything else to add there? Okay, we are having a request to have contact information for the panelists put in the chat or shared for continue contact and networking. So if you're comfortable doing that, that would be great. And then I think we'll ask one additional question. So in the data, and I know we didn't go, weren't able to get all the way through it, but that will be shared out. There is an increasing need that we're seeing for soft skills and professionalism skills, 21st century skills. Seems like everybody calls it something different. That has always been the case. And then when we looked at the research with Burning Glass Technologies, and they pulled data from the last 12 months of what skills employers were looking for, when we looked at the top skills that came out of that surveying, several of them were soft skills, professionalism skills, with communication leading the way at almost 30%. So I think you've talked a little bit how you have incorporated that in your programming, but I want to just ask you, what do you think of that data point? And also, how does that impact the program offerings that you're utilizing? And you can start with Alana.
Of course. It doesn't necessarily impact, it's always been a part of what we do. So soft skills have always been, a workforce development, like a track that we want to make sure that we cover as we're training folks to enter the workforce. But for technology and cyber, it's even more important because a lot of these jobs that are out there nowadays, even prior to COVID, are going to be remote or working in silos or small teams. So a lot of times, I don't know how to phrase this answer, but a lot of times folks in those fields don't have the needed social skills or team building or teamwork skills that they need to have to be successful in a work or organization environment. So it's a crucial element for folks moving into the tech field. I know for myself, I've witnessed people in like the help desk, and they're just not very nice people sometimes, So they don't have communication skills, or they're not really, comfortable being in front of other people when, in fact, a lot of these skills are a lot of these jobs are going to require you to be a very well-rounded candidate, so to speak. If you want to be in the sales environment, product sales development, you've got to be able to speak to folks and write contracts and follow up and be on time. So many other soft skills surround each and every different career path, and not only just STEM and cybersecurity, but just all of them. And so it's always going to be an important piece that we've added to our program. And for us as well, it's not just about creating more candidates. We also work on the entrepreneurial spirit as well. So we're also looking at helping folks build, young folks build a startup so that they can then employ other people. So I think there's 3 levels to this. It's not only just the technical skill, but entrepreneurial track, and then the soft skills track. Yeah.
And Renee, can I just jump in really quick to build off of what Alana just said? I completely agree with all of the points that she just made, and wanted to also add that through some of the monthly meetings with our larger portfolio providers, them sharing with us at the city, not only how we are upskilling and training our young adults and adults in this time has become very, not complex, but there's just a lot more to it than I think originally prior to the pandemic, but also thinking much more holistically and comprehensively around how we are skilling up, trying to skill up in ways that you know, as in ways that provide additional or multiple pathways at the same time. I think that's something else that we've had to become very creative around when it comes to workforce development. The day and the time of and the exposure to different pathways has become much more important because of all of the trends and the changes in the labor market. And so I just wanted to add that I think, and again, I tip my hat to all of our providers that have done such an excellent job of getting very creative at doing the upskilling and reskilling of our Sacramentans, job seekers, but really wanted to highlight that we've had to become just much more dynamic in our workforce training because of the labor changes, the significant labor changes because of the pandemic.
Thank you for that, Christina. Carmen, you want to comment on the large amount of soft skills, professionalism skills that are being requested by employers?
Yeah, I think it's really good to emphasize. I mean, we've also included in our program 2 different workshops. One is by We Cyber, and they really focus, it's a 2-part workshop, and they focus on purely soft skills and oral and written communication. Because even in cybersecurity, you need to be a good writer. You have to be able to articulate the situation so others can understand. So you've got a business people and you have IT people. You have to be able to communicate to both sides, right? So I think that is one of the workshops, super critical and super important. The other one we offer is something that's called Plan, Prepare, Present, and Promote workshop, which really is for our students to do their homework. The project is to really think about, because as part of our program, we also do the career coaching. So our instructors set them up to write about themselves, make sure that their LinkedIn profile is set up correctly, their resume is well written, and then also to guide them through the interviews, how to interview properly. So those are the things that are super important. So yeah, communication, great emphasis by Burning Glass. I think it just brings us even more so, focus on that. And I think that's why, I mean, we're going to continue what we're doing and perhaps even add more, right, based on this research. So yeah.
Thank you. Amy?
Yeah, so with my New World of Work hat, and my Dean hat, this is near and dear to my heart. And we started this research, several years ago, and we've heard it for decades. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, this is what employers are going to ask for. But with the changes in workforce that have been forecasted over the last 10 years, and actually we're seeing come to fruition now. It's those uniquely human skills. What is going to separate us from the automation, from the robots? And so being able to gain that, and so it's both the the soft skills, the professional skills, and the technical skills. How do you balance them both? I think my colleague said it all. It's all, communication is really core, and with that comes empathy, comes collaboration. How do you collaborate? Now we're learning how to collaborate virtually. I know we probably all miss each other. I would love to see everyone today. So that's what I miss about, what we've been going through. But I think, it's important to embed it in the technical training. So, just if you're learning mechatronics, you should also be learning how you would work with that client and ask, what their needs are. And so we still hear this from our industry advisory committees. It doesn't matter which department it's in. It could be in public safety, it could be in welding, it could be in business. We always hear it. So that should really be at the center of what we train, and then the technical comes around it.
Thank you so much. And Joel, I just want to bring it over to you. I know that you do research for other individuals, not just the City of Sacramento and Valley Vision. And so with this professionalism, soft skills, 21st century skills, I really wish the whole world could agree on what we should call it. But just that, in any case, what are you seeing from your research lens?
So the phrase that we are using is new foundational skills. maybe slightly more satisfying than some of the others that we're all frustrated with. Go with it if you like. And so we separate that out into sort of digital skills, business enablers, and things like that. And so we sort of categorize them in that way. I think it's important to try and get granular through, so a phrase like communication skills. That can mean a lot of different things. And what the appropriate way to effectively communicate is very different when you're in an emergency room versus in an insurance office, right? And if you sort of shout and interrupt in one, you're going to be rude and not behaving appropriately. And in the other one, you're going to be saving lives. And so we have to, hold ourselves to task to really understand how those skills apply in context. And let our participants and our learners, understand that so they can see how not only that they need to be good communicators, but how they need to be good communicators. And in just about all of those foundational skills, there's some version of that. The job posting data does give us some hint, and also understanding the context in which work occurs is also helpful as well. But it really does take some slightly more nuanced thought than a lot of the soft skills conversation has given us, and that's why Amy's work is very important, and that's why really that whole work context question becomes extremely relevant to students who are trying to build the skills and build them in the right way for the right places.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Well, we are at time. I want to thank everyone for hanging in there with us in the midst of a technological glitch. It wouldn't be COVID, right, if there wasn't something that occurred, and I'd be happy for the day to see that. I really appreciate each of our panelists for being here, Burning Glass Technologies for the research, the great work that's being done by our workforce and training providers, and the City of Sacramento for funding these training programs and activities and research. And I don't know, Christy, if there's anything else you want to say before we close.
No, just thank you. We are really happy and excited about all of the work that's been done, and happy to be a part of this ecosystem that is helping to get our Sacramento job seekers connected to resources and employment. Perfect.
We will be sending out the full slide deck, even the slides that weren't shared, and then we will also have this recording available. So look for the post event materials coming to you soon. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.